President Bush says the U.S. economy is strong and getting stronger. His critics beg to differ, sometimes quite loudly. President Bush says last year's tax cut is reviving business growth, but some critics say it was unnecessary, that it's only made the deficit problem worse. So politics aside, what's really going on with the economy in this election year? With us from the newsroom now, the head of Fox Means Business, our managing business editor, Neil Cavuto. What's the skinny, Neil?
Well, you know, they're both right, Shep. I mean, you could argue that the Democrats are right that the tax cuts, at least in the short term, made the deficits worse. The president's right that those tax cuts clearly helped the economy. Business spending has moved up. Retail spending has moved up. So both consumers and businesses are spending that extra money that they've been given. The question longer term is whether we're going to get enough oomph out of those tax cuts to start this jobs recovery that the president desperately needs to see in order to be reelected. We're seeing the first signs of it now, but we'd have to pick up the tempo quite a bit in order for the job growth to be significant for this president. It's worth pointing out that normally after recovery really takes on, it can be anywhere from 18 to 24 months before you see an accompanying run-up in jobs. Given the fact that we've had huge productivity booms in this country, Shep, in other words, fewer people working harder for the money they're making, it's going to be hard for our bosses to justify hiring more people if they can get the same amount of work done, if not more, from the people they already have.
Well, the president's saying that the White House projecting, I guess, around 2 million new jobs over the next year. Projected 1.7 last year, instead lost 53,000. And I just wonder if you think those projections are a real attainable goal, or if they're more pie in the sky talk in an election year.
Well, they could be more pie in the sky. In order to just meet the administration's forecast for job growth this year, you'd have to start averaging 300,000 jobs a month, to put it realistically, Shep. That's going to be kind of hard to do right now. And you'd also have to see these booming productivity figures slide a little bit. What it comes down to in plain English, Shep, is making sure that our bosses are confident enough in the economy that they start hiring more people, or they might feel, just as they look at someone like you, Shep, and say, you know, he's doing a great job on the 3. We have him on at 7 Eastern time. Maybe if things really get tough, we'll put him on at all different times. We can get more bang for our buck with Shep than we can hiring other anchors. That is a microcosm, really, of what's going on here. Bosses are convinced right now that they can squeeze more juice out of their workers, and until they're convinced that there's a real light at the end of the financial tunnel, that's exactly what they'll continue doing.
On the budget, real quickly, Neil, I don't find budget that interesting, but I do find that the criticism that he's left out, that the president's budget has left out the idea of continuing spending that's necessary in Iraq. And some have called this budget a Pinocchio budget. In fact, I believe that's what the New York Times editorial called it.
Yeah, but you know, with no insulting to your question, Shep, I don't buy what either side says about budgets. We were really wrong 10 years ago when we were saying we're going to have deficits for as long and as far as the eye could see. We were wrong a couple of years ago when we forecasting record surpluses for as long and far as the eye could see. The fact of the matter is, trying to guess what the government's going to make is akin to me saying that I'm going to stick to a salad diet. Don't bet money on it. The reality is, Shep, that these numbers aren't worth the paper they're printed on. They can be changed enormously by a slight uptick in GDP. The economy can be doing a little better, and all of a sudden you're getting billions of dollars more in revenues, and then you're off to the races. So bottom line, don't put much stock in what either side is saying.
Janice Dean, better at forecasting than they are. Word.
You got it.
Thank you, Neil. Still
right,
to come
Shep.
From Studio B, Martha Stewart's secretary broke down on the witness stand, and Stewart didn't hold back very much either. What does all of this testimony do for the case and to the jurors and all the rest? We'll ask a criminal defense attorney and a former prosecutor on Studio B. And Jane Skinner's coming up in just a few minutes. Skinnerville, down the road.